Hello, welcome to Object 21 of my series History of Summerhill through 100 objects. So Object 21 is... it's a bit loud, isn't it? It's the bell, the school bell. This bell is actually my auntie's. She was one of the reasons why I became a science teacher and why I studied biology or zoology at the university. And she was a teacher all her life. And I think she set up one of the earliest sort of school farms in Kent with her school, which was near Maidstone, where I taught for a tiny bit. Anyway, the school bell. One story is quite interesting, and that is to do with I was part of the inspection process of Summerhill was that when they used to come, we used to just take it for granted that they came, and we were very open with them, but we didn't really watch them or observe them. And so at the end of the inspection, we would sort of come together and chat, and we would find out about what they'd seen and what they'd done and things by chatting to each other, and that was the only way we found out. So because of the feeling that we were being threatened by them, and the threat of the court case, it was decided that staff should follow them. So I was the one that was asked to accompany the inspectors as they went around, and so I would walk with them, and if there were any issues or anything happened, which sometimes it did, then I could explain to them the background as to what had happened. And while I was walking with one of the inspectors, we were walking at just near the woodwork, near the entrance to the house, and the entrance to the house next to the woodwork is where the electronic bell is situated, and it's on a timer, and Will sets it, and it rings at the beginning of every lesson. So and then it's also got a hand button that you would press if you were sort of using the bell to announce a meeting or to start a game, or an event and things. So the bell was very important, not just in terms of lessons, but in terms of like I used to ring the bell when I was doing Doctor Who evenings, when Doctor Who started again. I used to book the staff room, and we would have comfortable evenings with the kids and some of the staff watching Doctor Who on Saturday nights, and the bell would announce that. Anyway, so and the inspector turned to me and he looked a bit sad, and he said, "Isn't that sad?" I said, "What?" And he said that Summerhill has a bell, which amused me a bit, because the bell was everyone used the bell in terms of if you wanted to go to academic lessons, then the bell allowed you to know when yours were. It also was actually, the bell was part of what defined the life of the teacher, because there was a rule or a law that the teacher had to be at the classroom on the bell, and that or just before the bell. So you had to be in your classroom on time, and you had to wait for at least 10 minutes after the bell had gone, so that if your classroom was empty, you still waited the 10 minutes, so that any latecomers, you wouldn't leave. If they arrived within that 10 minutes, then you'd do the lesson. If no one arrived after 10 minutes, then you were free to go off back to your caravan, or to your room, or to the staff room, or for a walk or whatever, until the next lesson. Or you could just hang out in your classroom and tidy up or prepare. So and there was one case I brought about a teacher who was so relaxed that they decided not to in a sense be controlled by the bell. They were their job at the time was teaching English, and a number of their students were from Germany, and English was very, very important for them in terms of staying here in England and possibly going to college and university. So and I was chatting to Zoe, the principal, next to the entrance to the house where the bell's situated, and we were chatting, and one of the German students was very upset because she was saying that because the bell had gone, and she was walked to us from the English class and said, well, her teacher wasn't there. And you know, I looked at Zoe, and I was a student, and we both, you know, said, well, they should be there because the bell's gone and you have a lesson. And she was very upset because it wasn't the first time, and she was very upset also because she was doing an exam that she needed to do if she wanted to go on to college. So, and then several minutes later, around the corner from the basketball court, so just running around the house, I think, and this little boy came, and he came with he had one of those sort of guns that fire using infrared or whatever, and he was wearing like a target on his chest, and he was firing at someone and then running from them, and then hot on the child's heels was the teacher, who was also wearing one of these targets on his chest and had one of the similar guns and was firing back at the student, and they just ran past, oblivious to this student who was very upset and was actually crying about the fact that she was extremely worried about not having her lessons, and we were quite shocked, me and Zoe. But in the end, I brought the teacher to the community meeting for not offering or giving the opportunity to the students of lessons and of teaching, which is one of the reasons why teachers are actually there. But anyway, I mean, this idea of the bell, in fact, is interesting in terms of the timetable, because I've said again and again, I think that for me, the classroom was like a boundary between ways of learning in a way, or ways of being taught, that if you entered the classroom, then it was accepted that it was an area controlled by the teacher with the consent of the children, but still controlled by the teacher. It was their area, and that the teaching could be with a curriculum and for exams, except that if there was assessment, formal assessment, the student would have to give their consent, but informal assessment would be a natural part of the classroom. It was accepted that we were looking at their language use and their writing and their reading within the classroom, things that we wouldn't necessarily look at unless we asked the student if it wasn't within the classroom, if it was in the general life of the school. Okay, now the interesting thing with Neill's book, Dominique's Log, which is another blog that I'm doing, it's 100 Things to Learn from the book, is that Neill actually buys a trumpet sort of part way through the book, so he might have used the bell at the beginning to announce the classroom and to the end of break to call in the students, but sort of halfway through the book he gets a trumpet and he plays tunes on the trumpet, much to the delight of his children, in order to announce the start of the day and to announce the end of playtime, and then he starts playing tunes, I think, to announce different lessons. So I presume an English lesson might have one tune and a maths lesson another, which I find quite fascinating. He actually writes about it, trying to look for a trumpet later on as well, with his Dominic Abroad book, I think, which is about him just as he's about to set up sort of Summerhill in Helleroy in Austria. Anyway, the one thing that we used as a symbol of Summerhill was the bell when we organised I organised a meeting of the school. So I got the whole school, or as many as wanted to come, came down from Summerhill, Leiston, Suffolk, to London, and they came down. The first one was in the House of Commons, and it was actually in the Jubilee Room of the House of Commons, which is a lovely room, and we had got all the children into the room and staff, and they sat on the floor, and we had invited guests sitting in the back, including 3 MPs. We invited all the MPs to come. 3 came, including the MP, my local MP, Gwyn Prosser, who was MP for Dover, who actually sponsored the room. He allowed us to, or booked the room for us. And then we had a Summerhill meeting within the Jubilee room, and Zoe gave me the honour of ringing the bell to start the meeting. I think we sneaked the bell out of the school and then produced it, and I was asked Zoe to ring it, and she asked me to ring it. And so we rang the bell to start the meeting, and then the meeting was a normal, typical meeting with an audience. And I mean, we have audiences when we have the meetings at the school itself. So it was very funny because at one point someone was fined in the meeting, and then I think one of the MPs put their hands up and said, "Excuse me, but you cannot legally fine someone within the House of Commons." And then for a laugh. And it was quite funny, but and it was interesting because it was filmed by this American guy who called Billy, who was making a documentary about the school over about three or 4 years, and he'd come down and he filmed this Summerhill meeting in the Jubilee room, and the second meeting was in City Hall in the London Mayor's chamber, in the Greater London Assembly Chamber. So, and this time we had my local MP Gwyn Prosser again as a guest, and we had wonderful Professor Michael Fielding, who is an expert on the cooperative school, state school, ran by Alexander Bloom in the east of London from 1945 to 55, called St George's in the East. And the event started off with workshops for state schools. It was organised for, I think we had 3 state schools classes, for 3 state London schools, and we had sort of guests from charities and NGOs and things to see the event. And we started in the House of Commons. Then we got the boat from the House of Commons to City Hall, and we walked across Tower Bridge, and to get to City Hall, and then we had the state school children sat in the audience area. So it's like an arena with the audience sitting above, in a sort of staged area above the chamber itself. And whilst they were sitting there, Summerhill arrived by coach, the students and the staff, and they'd been to Bethnal Green Museum of Childhood in the morning to have some fun and learn about the Museum of Childhood. And they also created a work of art. They created a paperboard, which will be one of the objects that I'll tell you about later. And then we rang the bell again. We rang the bell to announce the meeting. And again, the state school kids and the guests and everything watched someone have a meeting. And this time the acoustics were terrible, because if you've ever been to City Hall, the Eye, then it's an incredible big sort of auditorium with sort of glass and everything, and no one could be heard, so I had to run around with the microphone. There was a microphone, so the speakers who introduced it all, including my MP and my councillor for GLA, Jim Biggs, I think, or John Biggs, they could be heard because they had the mic. So I had to run around from the chair of Summerhill, and put the mic under his mouth as he spoke, and I had to run to all those people who put their hands up who were speaking or about to speak, and I had to say, "Stop! Wait until the mic's there," which was very, very funny, and added a bit of amusement to the dynamics of the meeting. So yeah, I mean, the last story is really about that I love storytelling, and but I'm a bit shy, in fact. Sometimes, you may not believe it, and I decided that we were having like a cabaret night at Summerhill, and I dressed up as a Jack, because there are lots of folk tales in English, like Jack and the Giant Killer, and Jack and the Beanstalk, and Lazy Jack, And so there's quite a few stories, so I got a number of those stories together, and I dressed up as I thought Jack would dress up. And then I had the bell, and I got one of the students to ring the bell in order to announce my storytelling. Which, and I sat there on stage with Wellington boots and a hat, and told some stories, which was fun. Anyway, so we'll end this session with a little ring of the bell, just to, and see you in the next episode. Right, bye bye.